This boy and girl are going to be well equipped when the time comes to take their places as worthy members of adult society.
Aloha, y'all. This is Daniel Eisenman, the host of the Breaking Normal podcast, where my guests are all invited based on the frequency of synchronicity, all done in person, and all trailblazers in the breaking of all things normal. All right, y'all. I'm excited for another Breaking Normal podcast. I think it's the 19th, and I'm sitting across Azuraye. Did I say that correct?
You did.
Azuraye, who I have been in contact with you before through a mutual friend, Ben Powell, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And then I have a couple gifts for you, but including the elk velvet antler. I think y'all had it at the Yellow Barn for a little bit.
Our little marketplace.
All right. And I think we have other mutual friends like Yovel, the producer. How did you get in touch? Because he was like, you should interview Azuraye. And I was like, I know who that is. Definitely. Let's do it. I've been meaning to meet her.
Yeah. I met Yovel recently through Jeremy. And then I met Jeremy through the Network State group, if you know them.
I'm not sure
Matt
if I
Herder.
do.
Okay. Yeah.
Jeremy who?
Jeremy Wood.
Okay.
Yeah. He just bought property in between Elk Run and Yellow Barn.
Oh, okay.
And we've all become friends, and it's just a big circle of people. It's getting smaller.
So an Elk Run is a ranch of sorts?
Yeah, another farm. Yeah.
Which is close to what you said, the Yellow Barn, which is your project.
Yes.
Is this correct? What is your position with the Yellow Barn?
I wear many hats, the doer of all things. My family's actually owned this property for over 25 years now.
Okay, so this is your family's property.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up here. It was an equestrian center, and we had all kinds of different animals, and I had a magical childhood where nature was really my biggest teacher. And then I grew up. I went to high school here. I went to college here. I studied international affairs and Chinese, and I tried to get as far away from Boulder as possible. Lived in China, never had plans to come back to Boulder. Ended up getting a job with cross-cultural work in Boston, where I connected with an old friend who just bought a moving business. We used to talk operations. I was in transition between jobs, and he asked if I would help with some admin work. And I thought that was going to be like a 2-week stint. Ended up being 3 years. Helped him build the business, learned everything about operations, and then
A moving business. Where was that located?
Boston.
Okay. Wow.
Called Small Hall. Kicked my ass for like 3 years straight.
What'd you say it was? What'd you say?
Small Hall.
That was the name of the business.
Yeah.
Oh, Small Hall.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow.
Yeah.
See, this is all very new news to me. I knew you were involved with the Yellow Barn, but I did not know to that extent.
Yeah.
So your parents, did they like grow up there, or did they acquire the property?
No, they acquired the property in 2001.
Okay.
Yeah. Mom grew up in California, dad in New Jersey. Then they found themselves in Boulder, Colorado.
Where in New Jersey?
Ooh, I don't actually know exactly
My dad's
where.
from southern New Jersey, Vineland.
Okay. I want to say Trenton, New Jersey.
Okay.
That's where he grew up.
And then what was it before 2001? What was it?
It was still an equestrian center.
Oh, it was.
But
so then y'all acquired it as an equestrian center business kind of thing?
Yeah.
And kept the business going?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Took that over. But the property was homesteaded in 1865.
Wow.
Before that, it was indigenous land, the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho and Shoshone tribes. And it has felt very full circle coming back and working with DAR, the folks who run Elk Run. DAR is short for Drylands Agroecology Research. So I got to meet Nick and Marissa, the founders of DAR, and they were just starting to do Regen Ag as consulting work. And we were down the street from them. We were one of their first clients, and they did a big design. And that showed us what we could really do with the property if we did regenerative agriculture, which is rotational cattle grazing, cover crops, perennial plantings, everything that works more in harmony with nature, which is really how all the indigenous tribes were really managing land way back in the day.
So you're saying prior to the 1865, it was indigenous land shared by the Ute, Cheyenne?
This whole territory, all of Boulder, the foothills. Yeah. So just part of that entire swath of land.
And what were those tribes again?
The Ute, Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Shoshone tribes.
Shoshone, wow. That's amazing. Do you know what exactly was going on with that land before?
I mean,
like, or anything about the tribes, and like, were they all were these harmonious tribes? I don't know much about this history.
There's a lot of deep history that I don't feel like I'm qualified to really share on it.
Inspired to look
but
into it.
There's so much. I mean, there's a lot of really painful history in this whole area as well. If you've ever heard of the Sand Creek Massacre and things that have happened in this area. And so
the Sand Creek, which part of where was that at?
In like Boulder County area.
Do you know where at?
No.
Sand Creek Massacre.
Not very specifically.
Wow. That'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting just learning a lot of this history, and just the fact that like this homestead was not necessarily like land gifted, it was land taken. And learning about colonization and the settlers that came here, but also, you know, the ingenuity and the innovation that came from all of that, the roadways that were built. You know, Highway 36 used to just be like a little bandwagon dirt road. And now it's a massive highway, and, you know, everything that we're doing here is really kind of bringing together new technology and ancient wisdom. And how do you find the middle way?
Wow, this is such a cool breaking normal story. How long, when you said you grew up in Boulder, when did you leave Boulder? How old were you?
We moved here when I was 7, so 1999. And then I left. Man, I was here for my entire life pretty much, but then went to China in 2013 through 14, and then came back here, but then left back to Boston 2017 through 2020.
So you wanted to leave Boulder, it sounded like. Can you tell me about that? It's always like, it's kind of concerning because like if my daughter grows up in Boulder, which she is, I'm like, is she going to want to leave like right when she's 18? Like tell me about why did you want to leave Boulder?
I just wanted to get out of here. You know, it felt really small. I went to a really small school, Shiny Mountain. It's a little Waldorf school.
Yeah. Okay. North Boulder. That's a beautiful campus.
Really beautiful. Really incredible. And then I went to CU Boulder, but, you know, it was just down the street. Whereas all my friends from high school studied in different states. So I didn't really go far from home. And so by the time I was done with college, I was like, get me out of here. I need to take a break. And I don't think I had a really deep appreciation for what Boulder was, Colorado, until I actually moved back.
Yeah, it's an amazing place, but it's a real bubble. It's almost like you can get lost in this little vortex until you leave.
Exactly.
Okay. And then China, I've traveled a lot. I've been to all 50 states and like 20 plus countries. I've never been to China.
Really?
Yeah.
How come?
I don't exactly know. A lot of my travels were revolved around surfing, hot springs, and hosting retreats. So maybe China felt a little far to host a retreat out there.
Yeah, I could see that.
What do you have to say about China and being
I
there?
Loved it.
Which part were you in?
I lived in Nanjing, which is like 2 hours inland from Shanghai.
Okay.
I was there for a language and cultural intensive. So there for a full year, lived with a Chinese homestay family, was taking 8 hours of Chinese language class every day.
Wow.
Yeah, like when.
So do you speak Chinese?
还可以说中文，因为我在中国待了1年。
I'm imagining that means yes, I do speak Chinese.
Yes, I do speak Chinese because I lived in China for a year.
I listen to Chinese. I hear Chinese.
You speak it.
Wow, that's amazing. Were you just by yourself or like what?
I was with the program.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
of like American students, but we were all there to learn Chinese.
And your host family, do you still stay in touch with them?
No, I had to get rid of WeChat because, you know, they're surveilling everything. Okay. But no, I mean, if I went back, though, I would be able to find them and reconnect and still speak with them. You know, it was an incredible experience. And I think just from an American perspective, everything we know about China is a lot of fear-based information. And yet when you go to China and you learn about the culture, and especially when you start speaking the language to the people, you can just start to understand the culture in such a deeply different way. And that's a country that has over 5,000 years of history, good and bad. And just to have watched and learned about the transitions of like their rise to power and economics and where they came from and just the battle with Britain and everything else that's happened, you know, you learn a lot. And then you also can really reflect about your own country and where you come from and someone else's perspective.
Yeah. What's most profound about Chinese culture?
It is so rich, and just the language was what really fascinated me, that I could really go down a rabbit hole with the language. But the characters are all pictographs, and they were originated from the oracle bones, which were all written on bones or turtle shells, and they were used for divination. And so all of these are symbols that represent things, and then they've been developed over millennia that now all have different meanings, and everything is memorized. It's not an alphabet where you could like pronounce something just by reading it. You have to actually understand what all the basics of the characters are. So the radicals make up a character, and then multiple characters make up a word, and then put those all together for a sentence.
I've heard it's like one of the most challenging
It's
languages to learn.
Insane.
I've also heard English is quite challenging.
English is insanely challenging because it's got a lot of roots from Latin, Germanic, Spanish, all of these different languages, and you're kind of, the grammar makes no sense. The pronunciation's all over the place. Yeah. But it was very humbling to learn a language that challenging, and you're just a kid again, all of these like complex thoughts and emotions that we have, you can't really express them in a foreign language quickly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think that did to your brain?
Oh my God. It like completely melted my brain and rebuilt it. I had actually lived in Spain when I was 16, and that was by far like the most trialing experience. I was really by myself. I wasn't with like a program.
Okay. Which part of Spain?
In Zaragoza,
Okay.
like in between Madrid and Barcelona.
Okay. All right.
Not a lot of English speakers there. I went to a Spanish speaking high school. My host mother didn't like me and didn't like Americans and was only just doing it for the money. So I did not get like a cultural experience there.
Wow.
But I learned Spanish. And then that was like, I was failing all my language classes in school. I had no idea how I was going to actually like float in Spain. I really thought like I was just going to have a magical experience. Maybe I wouldn't learn the language, but so what? But I learned the language, had a terrible cultural experience. And learning the language is what actually opened my mind to realizing that every time I was learning new words and ability to speak with someone, I was understanding their perspective on the entire world in their language, which was such a different way to think about things. And so Chinese was, my dad actually really encouraged me to study Chinese when I got to college. And I was like, no way. There's no way that I want to learn a crazy complex language like that. But I took a semester at CU and just totally fell in love with it, and then lived there and did a lot of work with U.S.-China relations and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a rich history. You mentioned your dad. What about your parents currently?
My mom and my sister are still here. My dad passed away in 2018.
Oh, wow.
And that was kind of when my whole world flipped upside down. I was living out in Boston, and, we'd actually been trying to sell the farm. The horseback riding facility aspect was kind of shut down in 2014. Parents were like, all right, we're done with this. This is like too much of a money pit. It's not making any sense. Kids aren't riding any longer. And I was actually the biggest advocate for them to sell it. Like, get rid of it. I'm never coming back to Boulder. I want nothing to do with the farm. I'm never coming back to horseback riding. And they put it up for sale. Couldn't really find people that didn't want to just turn it into condos and development and just make a quick buck. And my family just really felt like it was their role to be the guardians and to keep it as agriculturally focused as possible. They were actually in contract to close on a deal with a guy that just wanted to use it for fancy car storage, and that was about as close as they could get. And my dad's passing, the guy just walked from the deal. No explanation, no contact, and it just came like a boomerang back to my family and flipped our world upside down. Just, what the fuck do we do with this place? And like totally in over our heads. And I just had started working with this moving company with Charles, and didn't have time to process my grief, didn't have space for a relationship anymore with anyone. And I just was like completely tunnel vision on building this business. And I was in the truck with him. We were building software. We were building a brand. This was not just a job. It was like an MBA, boots on the ground, gauntlet for 3 years straight. So coming back here in the midst of COVID, when the world was just totally upside down, and I think the big question just kept coming up of like, who's in charge? Who's making all the rules in the world right now? And like, how does any of this make sense? And coming back to the land and the farm was like, this is what makes sense. Nature makes sense. And I have an idea for what we could do with this place. And I landed here. My mom kept calling me. She's like, you really have to come back to the farm. I was like, there's just no way. And she was like, you really need to come back. And like, the universe is telling me you got to be here by October 15th. And I was like, Mom, that is ridiculous. Like, why? But I did it. I came back here on October 15th, and 2 days later, the Calwood fire happened. We had a massive, massive wildfire that came over the ridgeline right behind the property, came onto the property. We had people there that were digging fire lines in the ground, and it stopped 3 feet before one of the first burnable structures, and the wind changed direction and ripped it around the back side of the property, burned the back 60 acres, and didn't touch anything in the heart of the farm. So that was my welcome home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty profound that your mom was pushing you to get back by that date, and that 17th is when?
That's 17th.
I think I remember
happened.
that because didn't we get like a huge snow the next day?
That was the
Where it
Marshall
stopped it?
fire.
Yeah.
And that happened a year later in Louisville.
I thought, because I have a picture of my dog, maybe I can show you afterwards, but it was the one in North Boulder. And I was living up on top of like, what was it? Blue Mountain on Ute Road. And I remember it was the hottest day of the year. It was like 90 something degrees, and then a huge fire. And then I thought there was 20 inches of snow that stopped it, at least where we were at.
Maybe.
And there was like a big snow that kind of.
Oh, I don't remember.
But I didn't know. I remember that was being very close to where y'all's property is.
Yeah.
That was a ridiculous. That wasn't that like the biggest fire in
our
history?
Yeah. And we've had fires throughout the years.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of evacuations, but nothing that came that close.
Did y'all have animals and such on the property at
that point? Only chickens.
Okay.
So we got all the chickens off, but we did a massive evacuation with like a 45-minute heads up, evacuated my family, child at home, and we couldn't come back for like over a week. We had no idea. All the reports said that the farm had burned. We couldn't get within a mile. And then to walk on the property after a week and just to see like all the buildings were totally fine. All the houses on the ridgeline behind us had all burned, and everything was just ash. All the trees had all burned, and everything else was spared. And I was just kind of like, okay, all right, I'm paying attention. I'm here. I'm present. And we just hit the ground running. We just sprinted for 4 years straight of just building up infrastructure and laying the groundwork for everything we were planning.
Yeah, tell me about it, because I've heard like little. I think at one point I had friends that I've interviewed like Corwin and them.
Yeah,
they
so
were working.
Corwin and Padme were at Yellow Barn with Tiny Temples when the fire happened, and it was their whole team that dug that fire line.
Wow, I'm trying to remember if I interviewed him before or after that. So wow, so yeah, okay, all right.
I know it's all very interconnected.
The schedule of this podcast is synchronicity, so it's good to unravel some. All right, so they were there, and so what did y'all do now that you were there and the property was spared?
Yeah.
What do you? I heard you started putting infrastructure, but like,
yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that evolution, especially because the industry that I'm in, how there's probably so many ways we could team up. I was like, what's going on with the Yellow Barn since then to now?
Yeah, this is the fun part.
Okay.
So. There's so many little tendrils, so I'm going to try to stay pretty focused on the main line. We can probably veer off. But, we put in the infrastructure for the greenhouse. We really started working with DAR, and they had this master plan, and I worked really closely with Nick to do, I'm sure at some point you'll talk to Nick and Marissa. They're incredible.
Okay.
And
are those who are they?
They're the co-founders of DAR.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And so we started this partnership with them. We planted 3,500 trees in 2021. Yellow Barn wasn't even a thing. I was like making up a brand and building a website myself and just piecing everything together.
So it wasn't called Yellow Barn before
No,
this?
it was called, it used to be called Autumn Hill when it was an equestrian center. When it was just in like this fallow period of, not being anything, it was called Allen's Farm.
Okay.
The Allen brothers were the original homesteaders.
Oh, okay, cool.
As just a placeholder. And then when I came back, we came up with Yellow Barn Farm.
I like Yellow Barn Farm.
Yeah.
I think that's a good evolution.
Very catchy. So DAR came into the picture. They started moving pigs through a whole area that was just all compacted horse pasture. The pigs started turning up all the soil. And I should just mention that DAR's primary focus is on soil health. That's really what they're doing, is building healthy soil. Through planting trees, which sequester carbon, they retain water, they create windbreaks, and then bringing the pigs through, they're turning the soil, fertilizing the soil, planting a cover crop after that eventually decays and gets rotated into the plantings and becomes more organic matter once you bring pigs through again.
Okay.
So doing all this over 4 years was building up area for garden spaces. We did this big tree planting for 3,500 trees. We had 175 people come out over a weekend. We thought we were going to have to take this weekend as a big tree planting part and then, spread out the rest of the plantings over the next month. And I was like, no way. We have to plant everything this weekend. And we had fed food truck come out. They fed everyone. We got every single tree in the ground that weekend.
Wow.
Wow.
I remember that. I think Corwin was a part of that
Yeah.
too, right? Yeah, I remember him telling me about that.
Yeah, definitely. Big part of that. Yeah, and it's all these incredible people, these groups that just came together. Like everything felt very divinely timed of like, oh, you need someone to help you build things. Like Padme and Corwin showed up with tiny temples. We had someone I had bought a converted van from, had flown back to Colorado, picked up this van, drove it back to Boston. That guy ended up reaching out, asking if we had warehousing space for a workshop. So he built an incredible workshop inside the barn. And
Like a wood workshop of sorts?
like a van conversion workshop.
Whoa. Who is that?
His name is Callan. He has Coyote Conversions.
Wow. Okay. So many cool connections here.
Yeah. So we started having businesses rent space, which was like, oh my gosh, take the pressure off of trying to figure out how do you grow food on an agricultural property for money. It's just not possible. It's not a for-profit enterprise. So the businesses started kind of coming in. I did a lot of work to just kind of clear house with all the past residential tenants. It's just been such a process. When I first moved back, there was like dust on all the counters. I had to set up locks and Wi-Fi and just like the bare minimum to even function. And it was all really piecemeal. We really were pretty strict with ourselves to not take grant funding or large donations and really focusing on building the economics from scratch. That felt really critically important. Because with administration changes or the world changing or what have you, I didn't want to rely on an income source that wasn't always certain. And I knew that if we figured out how to layer in diversified income streams like business rental tenants and residential tenants, having a membership program, having events, all of these things that built in resilience, kind of the same way nature does, is figuring out how do you take land systems, if we're talking about regenerative agriculture, to me, regen ag or just regeneration is something that starts to build a positive feedback loop. You can have a positive feedback loop that's totally negative. That's kind of what we're seeing with like mass extraction and scale. Infinite scale is not how nature intended. When you see things like that, you see a lot of destruction. Ultimately, viruses are infinite scale, exponential growth curves. We were looking at small scale microcosms, so having a centrally located decentralized system. So having all these little businesses, all these little organisms within the macro whole meant that my team or my family didn't have to try to manage all of these different components, 10 to 100 acres of land, and try to keep the lights on. So everyone tended to their own little area. Their rent payments are what helped us keep the lights on in those first years and just like make slow incremental progress. And now here we are in year 5, and we have a membership model that we've been beta testing for this first season, which I can talk about a little later. We have events. So we rent out the Yellow Barn for parties, and we're just starting to move into weddings. So next year will be our first year for weddings. We have this partnership with DAR. They manage all the agricultural space. So 80 of those 100 acres is under their management. Oh, wow. Which is incredible. And then we have a sauna business, Puffin Sauna.
I just heard about this in the sauna at Ember and Ice today.
Oh, cool.
I'm trying to think who told me this.
Yeah.
Anyways, Puffin.
Yeah.
Because Puffin is it's an Icelandic bird.
It is.
Is this person Icelandic that started
No,
this?
he's not, but he loved the idea of the cold plunges and all of that together.
So it's called Puffin what?
Puffin Sauna.
Puffin Sauna,
yeah,
okay.
So sauna and cold plunge, and that's its own separate business.
Okay.
So all of this meant that wow, we could actually have agricultural land that can stay agriculturally focused, but have all of these different components woven in. So you have health and wellness, you have healthy food, you've got, what I consider the social soil component.
Social soil.
Yeah.
I like that.
So if we're working on building healthy soil in the land, why wouldn't we also try to mimic that within our economic and social design?
Now, what's the membership model? Is this, you said you were going to say more about that?
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, it's been such a journey over the last couple of years trying to figure this out. We always kind of had a vision for a membership model, and it started out just as a concept, and then how to stay focused with this topic because it's so all over the place. We got connected with a group that had built out a shipping container. That was a little shop. It was like a little farm stand. That was kind of the first piece of this. I was like, oh my gosh, we could have an actual market on the farm. And we completely stocked that. We called it the stock market, like corn stock market. And the idea was that the community would invest in community, soil, all of these different services. And then their dividends would be everything that comes out of that, which is healthy food, community events, the sauna, the marketplace, all of that comes out from as like a byproduct.
Okay.
So we had been beta testing things. We had the entire shipping container stocked from all of these local vendors. We were trying to figure out like, okay, what's the legality of this? Do we need a license? We had talked to the county about it. And the county was like, yeah, you need a license. And then every single vendor in your store needs a license and they need insurance and yada, yada, yada. And it needs to be all these different things. And we're like, this is a farm store that like does not make money. Mm-hmm. And you're asking for all this information. And we have vendors in here that are like incubating ideas. Like we want to buy, the dry goods or the cookies from our neighbor because we know them and we trust them. And none of us mind that it was cooked in like their kitchen down the road because we know all of these people. Everyone wanted something that was more like closer to a bartering system or homegrown and home baked, but the licensure wouldn't allow us to do that. And so we were kind of just like, well, we don't really want your license anymore. If you know what some of these other models are around more of like the underground private membership kind of thing. And they're like, oh, who's doing that? If you know someone who's doing that, you better tell us because they're not allowed to be doing that. And I was like, forget that I even said anything. And I'm not even going to mention anyone's name who has those models just because like, man, it was such a mess to untangle. And I'm going to tell you this part that maybe you can edit out if we feel like this is an appropriate thing to share, but this was kind of our journey with Boulder County and the health department and ultimately getting a lawsuit from the health department because we said we didn't want their license and because we got on their radar and they wanted us to get a license because they felt that we were selling things to the public. We changed everything into a private membership model and told people, hey, if you want to come here, you have to sign this little waiver that says you understand the risks. You know that you're buying food that's not cooked in a commissary kitchen or commercial, and you have to be okay with that. And people are like, absolutely, this is exactly what we've been looking for. And the county was like, we don't like that. You have to get a license. You have to tell us and report all of these different things. And we're like, that's not what the community wants. We don't want to do that. Like, forget that we even applied. And they're like, no, you told us that you're doing this. And now you're like in our system.
Whoa.
And so they started sending us notices. And we have gone down this very winding route of understanding the legal system, understanding jurisdiction, your rights, contract law. Like I had to get a whole crash course in, protecting land and protecting sovereignty and essentially standing up for yourself if it's something that you don't believe in. And so I think what we kept coming back to is, man, if what is legally allowed in the grocery stores is actually what's killing a lot of people with all the dyes and all the crap that they put in the food, why would I want to get a license that allows us, that puts us in the same bucket as these people? That is not actually what we stand for. We're standing for something that's much more local, much more closer to home. And if people have an issue with that, then you're not our right market. And so we ultimately ended up closing the gate to the farm. We told people, if you want to participate, you have to sign up for a membership. We had 80 members sign up within that week. And I gave every single one of them an orientation to help them understand, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And every single one of those people were like, we're on board. We're here to support you. And I had a lot of mentors in this of just saying, this is how you structure it. You can have a private membership association where people are really joining your membership group. And so what we realized was that instead of selling to the public, we were moving everything into the private domain. So separating ourselves and taking ourselves outside of the public jurisdiction, which is really where the Boulder County Health had the authority. And it was kind of like inviting people into our private residence and cooking a homegrown meal. And it's been such a wild journey. We ended up getting a lawsuit filed by Boulder County Health Department against the property. And I had to navigate what that meant. And we ended up just kind of fighting back of like, I got quotes from lawyers and was like, what would it take for us to go fight this in court? And she's like, oh man, you're looking at $10,000 just for discovery, probably another $20,000 in legal fees. And God knows, if you lose, like the cleanup from all of that. And the lawsuit was $50,000. And I was like, there's got to be a different way. And we found a different way, and we started sending notices back to them that just literally ask questions of just like, under whose authority do you have to come onto private property when you've been notified multiple times you're trespassing, and tell us how to govern ourselves within this private jurisdiction. And we went back and forth with this for a couple months, and then finally the lawsuit just disappeared.
Wow.
And they left us alone. And I was scared shitless the whole time, thinking there's no way that this is going to work. I'm going to end up in jail. They're going to come arrest me. I'm going to get dragged off to prison or some crazy shit like that for like trying to sell cookies, you know? And it felt like dealing drugs. It was the most insane thing. And it just made me really realize that like food is insanely regulated in this country. Incredibly regulated, because really, if you control the food, you control the population. And those little sovereign bubbles, they don't really love that. And so everything we were building was to say, this is for us, and this is to support our community. And through this entire journey, I had to do a lot of research, and we ended up building out a church, a 508c1a, and we call it the Earth Church. And everyone's welcome at the Earth Church, and no one is in charge of the Earth Church. And you come here to be in connection with land. There is no intermediary between you and source. You know, the land is our cathedral, and we treat it as such. And everything we do is to be in service to the land, and she's got a seat at the table when we make decisions. So we ended up combining these two things of a church and the private membership association to create a private church.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I have a feeling a lot of people are curious about that. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are in private membership industries or that have farms or ranches and are looking to even do things like this. So that's pretty amazing. That's a pretty amazing, like a little blueprint for someone to maybe do their own research before applying for, what was the license that you applied for?
Don't apply.
You don't even apply yet. That's
apply.
kind of like the wisdom I took from this as well.
But I mean, that advice is to say, do what you need to do. Follow your own path. You know, there are different models for everyone. This is the model and the path that I like got shoved down. And it felt like the universe just kept putting all this pieces in place for me to take this path, even though it was scary and hard, but it just seemed to be what needed to happen. And a lot of what ended up stemming from that was really looking at agriculture in general and saying, why are we buying everything at the pound? Why is it that you're looking at the ribeye steak and it's valued at a per dollar price per pound? We're completely forgetting the animal that it came from and why that animal was in an ecosystem. And that our entire food industry does not function around the purpose of the animal in the system. It's only there to serve the audience with an individual cut of steak. So we tried to bring it all the way back to this, saying actually what you're investing in is land stewardship, and you're paying for a service. You're not paying for a product. Paying for a product is a totally different thing, and that's under regulations, and you have to pay taxes, and you got to deal with inventory, and I understand legality for that. What we're actually talking about is that you're paying for our farmers to tend the land in the right way, and that's going to be expensive because now you're paying for the labor. To do that then means that the animals, when they move out of that system organically and naturally as their time is spent and their mission is fulfilled, then that becomes a byproduct of the services rendered. So if you think of like, you know, our tree maintenance companies and the wood chips that they bring back, this is a byproduct of creating a service of tending land, tending trees. So maybe that the emphasis is not so much on this end product, it's actually on the life well before it ever becomes something that you consume.
Wow. And then how does someone, I mean, there are plenty of people in Boulder listen to this podcast and they might not know about this. Where should they look? Or if someone wants to get in touch with you, is that a thing someone could do?
Yeah, definitely.
So what are the ways that happens?
On our website, at the very top, there's a little banner now that says social and soil shares. Clicking on that will tell you exactly what the membership is. The social share is if you just wanted to join for community meals. We have co-working in the barn. There's access to that little marketplace that is now kind of half micro food bank, half, we call it a storage unit now. Okay. So we just rent out storage space to our vendors, like all the local farms, and they stock it. And if anyone wants to buy anything, they're buying it direct to the farmer. Okay. Does not go through us. Oh. So that's another way that we just kind of limited all risk for everyone involved. And then the micro food bank aspect is the fact that we work with a nonprofit that drops off rescued groceries that they get from Whole Foods, Kroger's, Trader Joe's, and we stock that in the shipping container, and that's free for all of our members. Wow. 50% off the sauna. We have a lot of events and such that we can offer for free because we donate the space to the facilitator. The facilitator can charge the public for tickets, and then they give the class to all of our members for free. So that's the social share. The soil share is all of that plus the food share. So you get beef and pork from DAR. So it was all the cattle and the pigs that were doing all the regenerative agricultural services on the land from last season. And then produce from Sunburn Farms, which is absolutely incredible produce. Sean Burns used to work with Esoteric Culinary Garden, and so his veggies are just absolutely insane.
Wow.
So we pick all that up once a week, and then we aggregate it for pickup at the market, or we do distribution, delivery, like home delivery through a little micro business that I started called Picky Pig.
Wow. So people can get it delivered potentially. Wow.
Yeah.
And then you started that business as well called
Yeah.
Picky Pig.
Picky Pig.
So you have a delivery person.
Yes,
Wow.
I'm the delivery person.
You are.
I will deliver your food.
Okay. Wait, how are you doing all this? Wait, how are you that person too?
Yeah, every Tuesday. So we'll get all the food, we pack it up, I pack it up, and then we put it in the truck. So here, let me talk about the circular economics aspect of this and just circularity. From this moving business that I started out with, I brought a branch of that to Colorado, small haul, and small haul has sprinter vans and labor and software. That is like our area of expertise, core competency. They're doing moves all over the state. And when a truck is ready to be rotated out, we would either sell it or now I'm leasing it from that company as a sublease for Picky Pig. And so Picky Pig works with the stock market where we'll collect food waste from around the county, whether that's drop off, so people can come drop it off at a local community hub. We have them at Yellow Barn, Moxie, Nude Foods, and or people can sign up for home delivery through the residential composting service, or we have commercial service. So I'll go pick up all the food waste, and at the same time, I help Nude Foods, Boulder Broth, a couple other businesses with their home delivery. So orders that need to get to people's houses.
Wow.
So we stack functions.
It's amazing. You seem like you have your hands full.
Definitely. But it's fun. I mean, I wouldn't be doing anything else.
And is your mom working with this?
Not really. My mom had really helped me in the beginning figuring out liability and insurance and how do we structure everything. She's really the reason that we have done this whole path for the equity law and the private membership association. She's been like the legal liability side of everything.
Okay. Well, I brought maybe we can get these in the store. I think at one point we had that. Yeah. That's a sample jar for you. I don't know if you ever use that. That's we now have honey. This is from Southern Colorado.
That's amazing.
And then everyone in the world says this is the best tallow balm in the world. Did you ever try this yet?
No.
Oh well, those are some gifts for you.
Oh, and then I brought you guys some shirts.
Wow. How are we on time now? 8:37. Cool. Nice. Oh, nice.
This
nice.
is Picky Pig.
Oh, cool. I think I almost now I feel like I've seen. That's cool. I like that.
So I brought an extra large.
That's a cool logo. My daughter would love that.
I know. I love it. That's a heart. And then Yellow Barn shirts.
Okay.
This is our.
Oh, nice.
I'm really obsessed with geometry, and so the person that helped us build this brand came up with this logo design, and then all the graphics and icons are pieces of the logo.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Guys.
Yeah, thank you for everything you're doing. Like, I want to go check out the sauna situation as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I have so many questions. Let me see if I can. And I do have those 10 popcorn questions for you as well. But what's the sauna? Is it wood burning sauna?
Yes.
And is it the cold plunges? What's the water y'all are using?
I mean, it's hose water for the containers, but there's a creek that's right behind.
Oh,
so
you can get in the creek. How close is that to the sauna?
Like 10 feet.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know y'all had a creek on the property.
There's
like
an irrigation ditch that goes through the property.
Whoa. And then the water that you are using, is that city water or is it well water or what is it?
There are many different kinds of water on the property.
Okay.
So there's the ditch that runs through, which is an agricultural irrigation ditch that is owned both by the Lake Ditch Company and Left Hand Ditch Company. And I've learned a lot about just water rights and water shares and stuff. I ended up on the board of the Lake Ditch Company as their vice president. I don't know how that happens. And I've just learned a lot about the history of how rare water is and like the ownership of water and how rights were created. This is like a 100-year-old man-made ditch. And then we have 2 wells on the property and municipal water.
Okay. Wow. All right. Oh yeah, and then I think I had a little flashback. I think I remember emailing someone, maybe it was you, about I didn't know how big the facility was, but I'm like, is there a possibility of putting a pickleball court in there? Did I talk to y'all about that?
Probably could. I feel like I vaguely remember this
I
conversation.
know pickleball and even padel. I've been getting advertisements for this other new paddle sport. I guess they've created a couple centers in Boulder now, or at least one.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard that like in New York, those padel centers are just
Interesting.
cashing in.
Is it an outdoor or indoor thing?
Indoor.
Indoor.
Padel is the one with like the glass walls.
Oh.
So that's like a whole different type of facility.
Okay.
But I've heard those things are going crazy, and they're so few and far between that that's an interesting thing. But the pickleball thing inside, especially for the winter, if you had indoor courts, that's another little potential.
That's an interesting idea.
I don't know how much space. Are the ceilings big enough to like?
Well, there are multiple barns.
Okay.
There's the yellow barn, which has been restored and renovated, and it's gorgeous. That's kind of what we rent out for the private events. Then there's the arena, which is 25,000 square feet. That's the thing I was
thinking of when I.
But this building's really old, and it was built in, I think, like the 70s. And it's absolutely gorgeous. It's like, it's like a whale's stomach on the inside. Has so much potential, this building. One day it would take a lot of resources to really renovate the whole space. But I think the vision for that has been like a maker space where all the stalls on the aisle, each of those stalls could be turned into a different business's workspace or a classroom. And then the big interior space that's just totally empty and open being like a theater or, symposiums where all of these conferences could be held, like a really giant meeting space. But there's just so much potential.
And what's that space being used as right now?
We call it the maker space.
That is okay.
I have my little apartment there. There's a little lounge.
You're living in
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. I live on the farm.
Well, this is a whole other question because Yavel was like, because I used to do retreats for about 10 to 11 years. I did like 50 retreats over a decade. Wow. He's like, he wants me to do a retreat there. Do y'all have accommodations for people?
Not for sleeping. We've thought about bell tents or something like that. Because we could do something.
Like little canvas tents or something.
Yeah. But the barn space would be incredible for retreats.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. This is lots of seeds being planted as usual. All right. Let me get out these popcorn questions. The idea here is to answer these like in a minute or less.
Okay.
You think you're ready?
Trying to be.
And let's see. You may have kind of gone over some of this stuff, but we can just hear it from a different perspective this time. Number one, what was the moment you decided I'm moving back, I'm staying, and we're going to transform this land into something else?
When my mom called me and I landed on the property and said, okay, I'm here. There's no going back.
Right before the fire.
Yeah, right before the fire.
And then the fire came.
And then the fire came, and that was even more like, all right, that's it. It's solidified.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. If you had to describe the yellow farm in one sentence that would surprise people, what would it be?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, some of these can be a little tough.
Yellow Barn is a regenerative incubator space for all things, whether that's business, people, or land systems. And everyone has a role. Every single person has a seat at the table in a place like this.
Awesome. What's the hardest myth or assumption people have about regenerative farming or community building?
I think it's been deeply romanticized. I think everyone sees it on their Instagram, and we've all got this idea about living in community and homesteading and being in connection with land, which is all incredible stuff, but it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work because it's going to bring up all your shadows. I think for everyone who's lived at the farm over the last couple of years, it's like you are in a crucible, and it will bring up everything because you're going to get it reflected back to you almost immediately. And either you process it, or maybe that's not the space to process it, and you actually have to leave the system to like actually do that work because it's just really, really intense. And I think everyone thinks that we're all just going to sit around the fire and sing Kumbaya every day, but like shit has to get done. You're operating a business. It's not just a place to hang out, and you got to be like ready to run with the thing. You can't just rest on your laurels and pick berries. Not yet, at least. It
sounds like a few journeys, like parenthood and entrepreneurship.
For sure.
What's one practice at Yellow Barn that people undervalue, but you see as essential?
The back end operations. I don't think anyone really sees that part. And it's messy on the back ends, even just from what I'm telling you, like you can see how much is going on there. And I'm the one in the back, like typing everything and like connecting systems and just trying to keep it all organized. I've just really deeply held the philosophy of like the most organized team wins. And it's not even about winning. It's just like, I'm in competition with myself. How well can I keep this all organized and clear so that people, when they want to opt in and when they want to participate, they know exactly how they fit in.
I like that. Number 5. When you think of the farm 10 years from now, what is the most audacious vision you hold for it?
I think we've really deeply held a vision for this space being a sanctuary for all humans to come and reground themselves. The most audacious vision is like, it'd be sick if this whole little zone was its own township, like the town of Altona that had a neighborhood. It had its own little fire department and police station, and it was like completely sovereign, like its own little economic system.
I like that vision. What failure in the early days of Yellow Barn taught you something you couldn't have learned otherwise?
Oh my God, so many lessons. I have made so many mistakes along this journey. I have burned a lot of bridges by not having clear agreements with people. And, I'd say that was actually the biggest thing. I think when I first came into this, I was like, we can all figure it out. No one needs an agreement. That sounds really colonialist and like very capitalist. And yet I just got my ass kicked. And like the hardest part for me, my biggest core value is social harmony and my relationships. And I lost so many relationships over the years because I didn't do a good job of making sure that people felt honored in the dynamic.
Well, this might be a similar answer, but how do you balance building an economically sustainable model with doing slow soil restoring community first work first?
Yeah, they kind of walk side by side. That, nature's really been the greatest teacher, and things only grow at the speed of trust, whether they're relational or, natural systems. And building the economics to me was so vitally crucial in making sure that we weren't extracting from the land in order to turn a profit. Trying to make a profit from selling a head of lettuce, you end up just defaulting back into an extractive system because you have to create an economy of scale and you have to create so much volume that you ultimately end up bankrupting your soil. So it was actually trying to de-emphasize agriculture as part of the economic system. The economics was actually coming from all of the other different activities, and that the food could then be something that supported all of that rather than the emphasis for how it was supporting the farm.
Wow. Okay. What is one thing you wish more people outside of regenerative farming understood that would change how they act or live?
It's like the only way. It's the only way is through the soil. If we're going to fix all the issues that we're seeing, it's people getting reconnected with land. We're all on this land all over this entire planet, and it's rebuilding that relationship first and foremost. Understanding that the truest and quickest way to combat all the things that are happening in the climate is to focus on soil health. Because from healthy soil, you have the ability to sequester carbon. You have the ability to rebuild nutrient density. That then feeds our biomes. That then rectifies everything that's happening on a massive industrial level. We actually can fix and ameliorate all these different issues that we're seeing just by focusing on soil health.
I like that. The only way is through the soil. Mm-hmm. What's something surprising you've discovered about the people who come to the Yellow Barn? Volunteers, members, or partners?
They all hold the same vision. We're all holding this vision. We all see what this world could look like if we all just got our heads out of our butts and could be in the right seats and get up out of scarcity. We know that that's possible. We just haven't really seen a clear example of how it's done yet. And there aren't really a lot of spaces to try that out. And so I think a lot of the people that come to the Yellow Barn, it feels like a beacon, like there's a gravitational pull that's now forming. And it's like meets like. And you're finding that there are these brilliant people that have incredible skill sets, and we need all of that. This isn't just a farm. We're not just farming. We need people that are in marketing and admin and finances. Mm-hmm. All of those people have, they're a part of this giant mosaic that we're building.
I see it. I like it. I love it. Last one. If you could send one message from Yellow Barn to every city or suburb, what would it be?
You can do it. You can absolutely do it. It's just start small. And I think that the focus starts here. It starts internally. Everything that we project out into the world and all the things that we see wrong with it. I really deeply try to stay out of that mindset of the fear and the negativity and focus on what I can do. Because what I can do and what I can impact is going to ripple out and affect that many more people. And if I can just hold that light and be an example of it, it's not something you shove down people's throats. It's not me going out trying to sell the idea of Yellow Barn. It's people coming to Yellow Barn and being inspired and wanting to take that little piece of the flame back home with them and hold on to it.
Wow. Well, I'm going to have to take a picture of all these notes I took, but this book is for you as well.
Oh.
You are definitely breaking normal.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to chat.
Tell us the name of the website one more time.
Yellowbarn.farm.
Yellowbarn.farm.
Which is also our Instagram.
Okay. You have any questions for me?
How did you get into this?
Into the podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, that's basically I published this book right after my daughter was born.
Mm-hmm.
We were living in Encinitas, California, and she was birthed at our home there, and I was like 90% done with this book for such a long time. But once I saw that, I was like, I'm birthing this book.
Mm-hmm.
And did that. And then later that year, are you familiar with JP Sears by chance?
Mm-mm.
He's like this redheaded comedian. He was a recent guest. He was my first guest on the podcast. He's kind of famous for like doing these like ultra spiritual satires. He did one about Boulder.
Yeah, I believe it.
Really, really good. But we were staying at his place and he was launching a podcast. He had all this set up and it just like struck me. I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. Well, I'm going to use your equipment because it was encouraging me to. I'm like, I'm going to do the first 12 episodes of the Breaking Normal podcast. And that was in December of 2019.
Cool.
And It's just been like such a cool way to drop in with people that are like so breaking normal. Only like an hour-long conversation in person could start to scratch the surface so I can understand like all the synchronicities that are here for me and everyone else.
That's so awesome.
I definitely feel like it's the show has been full of people that have like broken the addiction to approval.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And are more addicted to like something authentic, whatever is like feels most authentic to them.
Oh, actually, that really, I would what's like the overarching pattern that you see and all like what you're kind of speaking to now, but the people that find you or end up on this podcast, what are they doing?
What are they doing?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's breaking normal.
Yeah. There's such a variety. First of all, there's been a lot of health professionals that think nothing like their cohorts. They're like very much in opposition. So we recently had the paleo cardiologist on. That's very different than most cardiologists' perspective. There's been lots of athletes, lots of entrepreneurs, lots of artists. Lots of farmers.
Cool.
I mean, we've had Alice from the Golden Hoof, Andre from Jacob Springs.
I saw that one. Did you talk to Yash?
Yes, Joshua Greenfield.
So Yash is one of our neighbors, and he does all of our homesteading education for the social share.
Okay.
Yeah.
I bet there's infinite connections.
Yeah.
They're just going to keep growing here. And since we've had the studio here in Boulder, it's been like a lot of Boulder locals, like a guy that was the fire chief for a long time that's running for city council, Rob Kaplan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know him.
But yeah, and he's definitely not your normal politician by any means.
Yeah, cool.
So, but I do think that's the theme. I think the thing that connects them all is they are not, you and them are not addicted to approval.
Yeah, you literally can't give a shit what people think.
And I guess that's breaking normal.
Oh my God, so much of this work is like, whoa, I really have to like be okay with that people are going to look at me as like the crazy lunatic that is pioneering this vision that I have and I'm really sure on, but most people can't see. And especially in the beginning when like you're showing people this whole story about Yellow Barn doesn't look like anything. Like everything is dead. You know, the trees haven't even been planted yet. And people are like, okay, sure. Love that you see them. But
yeah, I had a friend that's been on the show. His name's Brandon Hawk. He was like a preacher and a Wimbledon tennis player, but now he's more like a high-end life coach. But he would always like tell people at our retreats and such that the one that goes through the wall first gets the bloodiest.
Yeah.
Meaning that like that is somewhat like a lot of times it takes like that archetype for
Yeah.
someone to blaze that trail and get dirty, get bloody for it to become a new norm.
Yeah.
It's better.
Yeah.
And I think I look at like normal and culture and water in that way, like as they just need to keep flowing.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to like hoard those or stop those or they just they let them flow
100%.
and steward that flow, but
100%.
don't try to dam it. Don't try to hoard it. It's like ideas and money as well.
Money, I know. I talk about that a lot of like financial literacy of like, the financial flows, that money is like water. Like you need to have your little stream that everyone can pull from. You need to have your holding ponds. You need to have something in savings, but like you don't need the ocean worth of money.
And that's like manure as well. Manure and money have that in common. Like if they're spread out strategically,
Right.
they're very nourishing.
Right.
But if you try to stockpile them, they are dangerous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It becomes toxic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is a toxic
So
situation.
interesting.
All right. Well, thank you for giving me so many breaking normal things to think about. I'm definitely inspired, and I think we might have some synergies, unavoidable synergies here in the future.
Cool. Yeah, let me know. I mean, it'd be really fun. I'd love to like actually just sit and pick your brain more about like what you're doing and what you're interested in, whatever synergies you're thinking. I'm sure we can figure out some stuff.
Yeah, well, this book, one of them is this book is a kind of the golden thread of what I learned or gleaned from those decade of doing those retreats.
Cool.
And the fact of the matter is a lot of people are continuously asking me, like, when's the next retreat?
Yeah.
Because there's been a pause since 2019.
Wow. All right. It's over 5 years.
Yeah. We've done a couple of harvests. We've done a bison harvest, a buffalo harvest,
Oh,
like
wow.
a 1 day type of event. But what the book was based on, were these like 3 to 4 night retreats where we really removed ourselves from normal culture and did a social experiment that seemed to be very nourishing to people's souls.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, that'd be really fun to do at the farm.
I know. It seems like a great place
Yeah.
for it. So I'm happy we finally dropped in here.
Cool.
Keep breaking normal, y'all. Follow the Yellow Barn and follow this podcast. Subscribe if you're like I don't know if you listen to podcasts, but I do on Spotify, and I love subscribing to shows because then I get notified every time there's a new episode, and then I can add it to my playlist.
I will do that.
Yep. All right, y'all.
Cool.
Let's go.
Thank
Let's
you.
grow with the flow.